How are you feeling today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm a bit excited. It's my first podcast, isn't it? So
Nice, nice. As I've expressed many times during podcasts, we had many first timers, so I'm you're going to that this is going to be your first podcast basically. So, but I heard you have another podcast coming up, right?
next week. So this is the warm up.
The warm up, the warm. Do you have a specific topic for next week podcast?
Yes. It's related to motherhood.
Okay. I'm sure that we will touch base on motherhood as well here. So
Inevitably.
yes, but as you know, we have no specific agenda here. So basically, we choose the topic that we want. So there can be many topics that we can discuss, and it will be beneficial for our listeners as well. So what you're currently working on, Donna, at the moment?
So many things at the same time. It tends to get a bit overwhelming, I guess. But of course, I'm focusing on growing MyMama. I recently engaged our first full-timer. Wow. So that felt like a big achievement. I know it's,
But it's, it's going from 0 to 1, I believe. So that is the step towards having a fully fledged business, I guess. So not actually from the startup phase, but actually employing someone makes it more real, I guess.
So far, we've worked with freelancers.
Yes.
All our team are freelancing, and it's worked well as a model, but I really needed to take the next step.
Yes.
This will give me more time to focus on growth. There's lots of plans.
Going back a little bit, how did MyMama start?
MyMama started when, I guess, as a concept in my mind, it started when I had my eldest 2 kids. I have 4 kids. The eldest 2 are twins. And back then there wasn't the free childcare support that there is now, which meant that having newborn twins, meant that I had to take a career break. Mm-hmm. And I spent 3 years focusing solely on my daughters. Personally, it was very difficult. First of all, the fact that your focus is caring for 2 infants who are growing. It's very rewarding. Mm-hmm. But back then it felt very isolating as well. You're just removed from your usual routine, from your friends, from your colleagues. Everyone else continues with their lives. Mm-hmm. And as a new parent, I think it's something that, especially mothers, during their maternity leave, I'm sure everyone feels it to an extent, that you feel this sense of isolation. And I was trying to figure out how to answer my many questions that I had as the girls were growing up. And it all felt a bit like solving one big jigsaw puzzle, a little bit of information from here, you're not sure, so you go to someone else. If you have another issue, then you have to find another expert or another entity. Yeah. So it felt a little bit all over the place. And the same situation, I encountered the same situation then when I had my youngest 2, 8 years later. Yeah. So I was like, okay, there's some, there's a lack here. There's a missing service, a missing one-stop shop. Yep. Where parents can find the support, the expert advice, and as well, not just support from the experts, but as well support from a community of parents who are in the same situation. Yeah. So that's where the MyMama concept started building in my head. I spent 10 years in a completely different industry, doing something completely different. Mm-hmm. I studied food technology, so I spent 10 years developing food and beverage products. Okay. Which was something that I loved because it gave me this creative outlet.
Very creative.
And something that I'm still very proud of, because you see your product in the market, I'm like, and you just, think back to how excited you were. But in a way, I'm doing the same thing, but on different products. Yes. So creating a service that people need, that people will love. So the whole process is exactly that. You do the market research, mm-hmm. You test out the concept, you adjust as you go along. You adjust to different markets. You get the client's feedback, and you make sure that you're serving a particular purpose. So yes.
Right.
So basically, when I was pregnant with my youngest, I decided to leave my full-time job, which, of course, many people thought it was completely crazy. It was crazy. So I
took the plunge.
I took the plunge. It was the right time. I felt like it was the right time for me personally, because I felt like I couldn't grow further in the position I was, and also as a person, I needed to be freer to express my ideas, my creativity. And I had this concept in mind that had been there for quite a number of years, and it was a matter of now or never. And I think there's nothing worse than living with a what if, especially when you can do something about it. Because in many cases we have to live with what ifs. But when you can be a little courageous and take that step, and I always tell myself, what's the worst that can happen? It fails, and I find another job. That was the very simple
and it is as simple
train
as
of
that.
thought behind it. It is as simple as that. But it still takes courage, especially when you have a family depending on you. Because if you're on your own, you fail, and there's no repercussions on anyone else, at least.
Yes.
So it was a lot of planning, even financially, to be able to take me through the process. I got an in-between job until everything was ready, basically. So I found employment when I was 3 months pregnant by someone who was fully supportive of the situation. And
they must have been, for sure. They must have been.
In fact, it's something that I'm still amazed in. It takes courage to employ someone who is going on maternity leave in 6 months.
Yes.
But it's something that I still appreciate, and that that approach I wish to be able to replicate myself. Because as a mom, it's not easy to feel supported by your employer. Of course, I understand employers fully. I'm in that situation myself now. But offering that level of flexibility.
And trust as well.
And trust, of course.
You would not.
But then I gave my 1,000%, even while I was on maternity leave. I was checking in, making sure that everything is, continuing in my absence as well.
It is something that money can't buy.
No, absolutely.
The fact that someone gives you the opportunity right at the time when you need it the most, I think that's something that no money, no position, no extra benefits can buy. Definitely. So it's a very humanistic approach, and it's very human and it's very real. So you can't replicate that or compensate that other than reciprocating the favor in a way.
And you give more than you
yes.
than you should. That the more you give more than what's expected from you, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think that employers should keep in mind. Not just when it comes to working moms, but working parents, because I hate this concept that we give working moms the flexibility. No, it should be working parents, so that the load is always
it's shared as well. It is.
So I started this role. In the meantime, I was as well freelancing, as well in product development, and I started working on the MyMama concept. At night, usually. I used to. That was my only time where I could think quietly. I prepared the business plan. Everything was ready to go. I applied for grants. As soon as I was good to go, as soon as I registered as an employee of my company, and I was ready to go live.
It's a milestone.
Then COVID hit, so it was October 2020. I had to change. Just before October 2020, I had to change my business plan completely. I had to reskill myself because I needed a website all of a sudden. I was about to start as a brick and mortar activity, and now all of a sudden I have to do it digitally.
Yeah.
So I reskilled. I built the website myself using a no-code approach, of course.
Same here. I did that myself, so it's quite a pleasant experience, and it's much cheaper as well, because if you do it yourself, at least you spare yourself from
again, you limit the
for sure. But unless you need an online shop, a website can easily be done with a no-code approach. So when it comes to the online shop, it can still be done because there are options nowadays. But the price will go up if you need an online shop.
Again, I was minimizing the risks that I was taking, minimizing the upfront investment, and I said, let's give it a go, see how it goes. I got a grant as well, which really helped, and I started with a team of freelancers. I would say 99% of them are still with the company to this day, but I was selling air. I was selling the idea to them. Listen, I have this concept. What do you think? Would you be willing to discuss delivering a course on this topic?
All right.
Or would you be willing to offer online consultations in an era where online consultations were completely new? So I was selling air, and I was happy that there was an entire team who believed in this concept as much as I did.
Yes.
And little by little, it
you
developed.
must have been very inspirational in your approach, because
I was explaining the concept from the point of view of our customers, because I am my own customer, so I understand what lack there is in the market for this one platform where you feel you can get an answer. Yeah. It's something that's not easy to get to, but I keep telling our team, it's something that we're quite proud of, that if a client comes to us with a question and we can't offer that service, we don't sell that product, but we make sure to give them an answer, because to us it takes 2 minutes to discuss this and who's the best specialist in that particular field, and it's coming from the experts themselves, so they would definitely know better than a Facebook group or a Google search.
For sure.
And it's good to give that service of, listen, I'm going to I can't help you myself, but I'm going to point you in the right direction at least. So that's one thing that perhaps is different about what we offer, about our approach, that we try to support. We try to offer tailor-made packages. We have a variety of courses and workshops and services that are offered either as a group, in a group format, or a one-to-one format. But sometimes a couple or an individual might require something that is off the menu, let's say. Yeah. And it's very easy to just, I don't have time for this.
Yes. But that level of customization and that level of service,
but then it's appreciated, and then you get the client on board, and they're with you as their family grows, and it's a beautiful journey for us to be part of as well. It's very, very rewarding.
You mentioned the experience of starting up and developing your concept into a business in a quite linear manner. Was there or what was the decision that turned things around for you, or an approach or a mindset that you've adopted that was a game changer?
I think it's the courage to say, let's try it out. It's quite difficult to take a decision knowing that it might fail. But I guess if you prepare well enough, if you know that if it's a failure, then the loss is, you can absorb that loss. In fact, we have the luxury now that we have our own space, to test out different concepts. Sometimes you think you have the best, amazing, the most amazing idea. For sure, this is going to be a massive success. And then you realize, oh, I didn't think of that.
Okay.
Or sometimes I convince the team to try something, and they're so not on board. But they know that they have to say yes, because when I put my mind to something, we have to try it out, and then it's one of our best sellers.
Okay.
So it's fun at the same time, knowing that you have the freedom to test out different things within limits, of course.
Yes.
And you have that ability to experiment and try new things, and it's exciting. It's something that keeps your mind busy, thinking of new concepts. Okay, this might work. Let's try this out. Let's build it a bit more.
Yeah. I think one key factor here that I'm noticing is that surrounding yourself with the right people is very important.
Definitely.
So having the right team and with the right
Absolutely.
mindset and that complements one another, it's very crucial. So from what I'm hearing, that seems to be.
I go a lot with gut feeling, in fact, not just with gut feeling, but also I rely on the existing team's judgment. So before bringing in a new team member, I cannot just rely on a CV. I cannot just rely on an interview. I go to the existing team and ask for their opinion, because it takes very little to upset an existing dynamic. And they have to work together. They have to, take over from each other. They have to use material that they prepared and pass it on to the newcomer. So they have to feel very comfortable and at ease with whoever comes in into the team.
They might know the person as well.
Yes,
Malta's a small
yes,
island,
yes,
so
absolutely.
they might know the person, or they might know a friend who knows the person.
Definitely.
And yes, it's involving people is something that we do as well at the place I work full time, which is not as easy, especially if you're a larger company. When roping in people and valuing employees' opinion, I know that they are freelancers, but they're still sort of pseudo-employees in a sense. They're team members, and it's important because, as you said, one person can disrupt the whole dynamic of the team. Not necessarily because the new recruit or the new person joining the team has something wrong or is it's a negative person or something, or it's a toxic person, but they might not complement one another, and it disrupts the flow of the team. So I think that it's a very beneficial thing to do, is to rope them in, see whether they're fine with that, and I think that care, that attention to the staff is very important as well.
I mean, it's something that I'm learning as I go along. I have zero experience with HR, or it takes a lot of takes a lot of your energy in communicating your ideas. Of course, now they're used to my ways. Very early in the morning, they get WhatsApps, very long WhatsApps with a whole description of a new concept, and luckily, I mean, they're used to me by now.
What internal resources are you currently working on building?
Internal resources in what sense?
In the sense that you have now to learn or polish your skills in delegation, for example. You mentioned you're a full-timer, managing a larger team, so your leadership skills have to evolve to a larger audience now. What kind of internal resources are you currently working on developing the most?
I think delegation is something that I'm still learning. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to doing things. I might be disorganized, but then I'm a perfectionist when it comes to the final product. Over the past months, I've had a couple of interns as well joining us. So I'm very happy to teach and to oversee, but those final details, then I need to sort of teach myself to overlook certain things. For example, someone might not do something exactly in that particular order, but the final result is there, which is fine. So I need to train myself how to let go of the non-important details.
And having interns, you have to. It's very much like parent, I would assume, but
pretty much. Yes, I had. We used to joke about it, in fact.
Because they're still young, so
yes,
they
you need to make sure that they're having a good experience, that they're learning something useful. It's sometimes interns are taken a bit lightly, but
lightly, and we tend to overestimate them as well. We tend to expect too much out of interns as well, and we tend to forget. We tend to see interns, or at least the feeling that I have when I speak to people is that we tend to think that interns are there to just dump the extra work that
do the boring
jobs.
Yes. It's not,
and it's not the case.
Yeah.
It's not the case. We have to be mentors and we have to be coaches as well to these people, and sometimes that's often overlooked. We just give them the boring tasks and that's it.
Yes.
It's like, and it's partly that because that is the learning experience that they need to do, but there's a lot of mentoring and coaching that goes on into it, and if we have the time and patience to, that is why it's very much like parenting,
even if it's just observing you doing certain tasks that they cannot be involved in, but they're still learning, they're still understanding what goes on in the day-to-day running of a business.
Sometimes just showing them how to use the photocopier or to send emails as well, because we might assume, or at least I assume, that a student at MCAS Junior College or early university would know how to send an email in the proper way, but they don't in reality, or not, at least not all of them. So I have to help them navigate their way into sending emails or to make phone calls, something which is very, very difficult. So and something that I struggled with as well as when I joined the working world. So to do phone calls, it doesn't come naturally, and we see youngsters on their phone constantly speaking to their friends over the phone or chatting. But when it comes to outside, they're very conscious. They're quite afraid of the judgment and inverted commas that they might receive from the other person on the receiving end. So and we tend to underestimate, because we've learned that we've passed that hurdle. We tend to assume that it's an easy hurdle for others to overcome as well.
But I do remember struggling with that.
I did. Telephone calls?
Yes.
No.
Cold calling, yes, definitely. It was something that I had to learn. That was a skill. That
you struggled, or you did?
I used to.
I used to. Yes.
It's something that you learn, that you master. It's just another skill.
I learned the hard way. In my case, my first job out of university was in recruitment.
Oh.
So I had to learn the hard way, because I had to make many calls, of course. I had to conduct telephone interviews as well. So.
Right.
So in a couple of months I was a pro on telephone. So, but it took a lot at that time, because even if it's on the phone, even if you know that the person is not seeing you at that time, you know that by voice you can send many signals as well. The tone of voice, the words that you use, if you stutter. So it's something that you send images to people as well, and there is only one output, which is the voice.
Of course, you have to
focus on that element as well. So it's very nice to see that your business is growing and you're moving forward on that. So when it comes to a new concept, how do you go about it? So you have a new concept, you have an idea. How is usually the process of getting into it and productizing it in a way?
So usually new concepts, new ideas come from an observed need. So let's say, for example, we have a specific course that caters for dads-to-be to show them more, give them a more hands-on approach on how to care for a baby, give them a better idea of what changes to expect and perhaps how to deal with them, what's going to happen with work-life balance once they have a new family member coming in. And of course, we completely overlook the fact that even for moms, it might not always come naturally. Very often it doesn't. In fact, it's just a learned experience. It's just a learning experience as well.
Okay.
So we're having a lot of requests, like, are you going to do a version of the Daddy Cool course for moms? Like, how didn't you even think of it? Obviously. And of course, we catered to it with a different approach, because of course our client is different. So we always start from the target client. What don't we have time to cover during the prenatal classes that a new parent might really appreciate, might really need, might find useful when it comes to those first few days. So of course for moms to be, it's completely different. So here it's just a matter of different sexes. It can be a different target age group when it comes to how old the kids are. We recently added another course. Our pediatric first aid course has been very popular since the very beginning. We do it every month. It's usually fully booked. But even with my own children, I realize that they don't have the knowledge or the tools. If something happens, if they graze their knee, if they're playing roughly, they don't have the awareness of what can go wrong or why we need to be careful around water or around hot items. They just don't have that awareness yet. So kids of different ages, it really should be taught in school when it comes to basic first aid techniques or awareness of dangers. So we came up with this course series. We kept them short because, of course, kids won't sit through a 4-hour course like as adults can. And we came up with this course series that is aimed at teaching kids first aid. And it's something that's,
What ages does it cater for?
In the case of the first series, it's 9 to 12.
It's still young, because I know that there is the young people first aid. It targets children at the age of 14.
I know if something is taught in Scouts, for example, but in schools.
In school, I don't think it's not present.
Not included at all in the curriculum.
And I fully agree that at least if it's not first aid, it's first aid awareness. So what you do in case of something happens, because they might experience nosebleeds, for example.
Or how dangerous it is to, for example, joke around while you're eating, or making people laugh while they're eating.
Yeah, simple things.
It's just awareness, especially at a young age.
Yes, at that stage it is.
Or at a very young age, how to call the emergency number.
What to say, what
information would they need.
Yeah.
They will guide them, but even knowing the number itself, it's something that really needs to be out there. And if it's not included in the curriculum, parents need to pass on this sort of information to their kids.
No, agreed. It's very beneficial, and it is something that, children have too much to handle at school as well. So I'm not suggesting an extra topic.
No, but these are life skills. It's not about focusing on the.
I think it should be taught to some extent, but as we said, it's awareness. It's not. There's no need for exams at this stage. It's just awareness of things. Similar that we, I think they still do with the substance abuse course. There's a short course from set at school, so or self-esteem and taking care of yourself. This can be very easily incorporated in these short courses, I would call them. So agreed, yes. And Scouts, yes, we do teach basic first aid at multiple levels and at multiple degrees as well. I would say that the section that I take care of, which are children aged between 10 and a half and 14, it's quite intensive still. So when it comes to first aid, we cover most of the things that are covered in the adult first aid, because we do cover CPR, recovery position, and and the major incidents that might occur. So it is still quite advanced. But yes, that's scouting. That's you know what you're getting into in that sense. So very interesting. Donna, you're also a mother of 4, and having your own business is um, being employed is a challenge, but having your own business is an even greater challenge. How do you ride the waves?
You can't close your laptop and go home. I take my laptop with me and open it again at home. And of course, if there are urgent emails, if there's all-nighters that need to be that I need to do, it's your business is part of who you are. It's quite difficult to explain it to an extent that someone who hasn't experienced it gets fully. It's like having another baby. You're responsible for it. It's part of who you are because it's your own creation. It's your concepts out there. There is your personality behind it. It's what makes it unique. Because you've created this concept. You're molding it in a particular way. It's not as simple as leaving it at the office.
How does that affect the family dynamic?
It took a while, and it's still sometimes a struggle for my kids to understand that if I need to work in the evening, I work. Or if I tell them I have a meeting, like, don't disturb me for the next 30 minutes. They understand it. Or if I need to come to work in the evening because there's an evening course. I mean, it took time from them, definitely. But then I have to compensate in other ways.
Yeah.
And I have the flexibility to compensate in ways in which I couldn't before with a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of pros and cons, of course. Yeah.
Because obviously you can spend more time with them, or it can be not that rigid. Your schedule is not as rigid.
Exactly. I can I can move things around, whereas before, of course, with a 9-to-5 job, it wasn't possible.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you mentioned that you're disorganized in some areas. How would you structure your day-to-day and manage your time?
I am what you would call disorganized, I guess. I try to improve on that, especially when it comes to the company, of course. Making sure that we have a digitalized system in place. We're currently undergoing a process of further digitalization of the processes. But when it comes to my home life and daily life, I guess the fact that I'm disorganized helps in a way that my expectations are not too high, in the sense that I feel like I failed on different tasks. Many times I'm asked, how do you manage, with 4 kids and the business? I don't manage to do it all. Every single day I'm left with, I didn't manage that today. I didn't have time to finish the task. There is, 4 different points in my to-do list that are... But I try to focus on the most important and the most urgent things that need to be done. And then, I accept that I cannot do it all. I have learned that I need to accept help. Even when it comes to childcare, I have learned that it's okay to take shortcuts sometimes. I don't need to have a 4-course meal ready on the table every day, and my kids have learned to accept that as well. And sometimes it's more of a priority to, do a school project or finish off an email, for example. Priorities is something that now the entire family has learned to understand. And we understand as well that priorities might change and the fact that I don't follow such a strict timetable. I'm not so strict with myself and the rest of the family. That helps because I mean we're a family of 6, and every day there's something that we did not plan for.
Yeah.
And you have to figure it out.
You have to
on the spot.
Yes. And that's what we were discussing before. Sometimes you have to take decisions with little to no info in some cases, or with little to no insight or foresight in some cases. And sometimes you have to keep the best interest of the family and of the children in mind and take the decision without knowing whether that decision is right or wrong, until you take that decision and you are faced with the consequences of that decision. And sometimes that's even harder. But again, as I expressed before, I think that it's the children would know whether you mean well or not, and that you have their...
And you make mistakes. In any cases, you make mistakes.
Yes.
And it's completely fine to make mistakes and show them you can make mistakes. Growing up, I put a lot of pressure on myself to, as much as possible, never make mistakes and always, avoid imperfection. And it didn't have very good consequences on myself, my life, my growth, I guess. And I certainly don't want to pass that on to my kids. I would like for them to have the space, the room to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it a lot in the world of business, of course. You make mistakes, and it's only if you don't try that you avoid making mistakes.
Yeah.
And again, leaving this what if, it's something that I hate I would hate for my kids to be left with many what ifs just out of fear.
And I think you have to give the space and the empowerment that children can explore, because obviously as parents have the huge influence on the children, and it can dictate whether the children feel at ease and explore things or not. There are mistakes that you can avoid, which are obviously harmful for sure, yes, so ideally you don't try certain things out. But there are things when it comes to creativity and trying new ideas and trying new approaches that are beneficial. And the beauty of children is that they like to explore. It's part of their it's part of growing up. Everything is new for them, because when they are grown up and they are adults, that space for a creativity and exploration is drastically reduced. Especially if you're an employee. There's nothing wrong with being an employee, but if you're working as part of a business and your job is not as creative, even if it is, because I've met with graphic designers who
but you're still limited.
But you're still limited, even by the client.
Yes,
so
of course.
you're still bound. You can't explore at infinity your creative. So there's a limit to what you can stretch. So I think it's important to give that window, that I would say 15-year window of boundless creativity and boundless exploration. That I think that has a huge impact on the formation of people in general when they become adults as well. And I think that might be, I would speculate, that might be one of the root causes of mental struggles as well. Because if you make a mistake and you stress about making a mistake, again, the word stressed, you feel stressed, you feel anxious that, oh no, I did a mistake, and you perhaps you didn't have the right environment to develop certain resources, internal resources, to say, okay, I made a mistake, how can I go about it now? What options do I have? To think calmly in a situation. Most of the things can be solved. Not everything can be solved, but when you do mistakes, we can at least redeem ourselves in some way, shape, or form. So, but it's having the awareness that we can do something about them, and sometimes we don't see that, because we keep focusing on the problem and not on the solution,
or what you've learned from it.
Yes, And there are so many lessons that we can learn from making mistakes, and that I think that's the beauty of it. It's not making mistakes, but it's taking a decision, trying to evaluate as much as you can the pros and cons of the decision. But there, you said that there are things that are unplanned on the day to day.
Of course.
Curveballs are everywhere. So you might take a decision, you might think that, and it happens to me quite a lot because I tend to plan quite ahead, and that is my mistake. Sometimes you plan for something and a totally unexpected thing happens. And that's the beauty of life as well, in a sense.
Exactly, and that you figure out how to overcome that particular situation.
Yes.
And then you have to learn how to be flexible as well.
So being disorganized in your case, I think that's very beneficial because you don't limit yourself into following a plan to the dot. So, Donna, you've been to Shark Tank as well in the past months. What was the reason why you opted for investors for MyMama?
So firstly, I needed the financial input. So, of course, I needed financial input, but I also needed as well mentors who have many years of experience in various industries, managing different businesses, years of experience that I didn't have. I came into the entrepreneurship world at the age of 38 actually. So that as such I had this disadvantage that I didn't have the experience, which didn't stop me clearly.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things that you can do is keep learning in life and understand that you know close to nothing. That is how I feel every day, but it's not something that I think is a negative. I think it's the beauty of learning and wanting to grow and discovering new things and doing research and learning a new skill. So bringing on investors was I think key to MyMama growing up until this point and hopefully further. It's not just about the finances. It wasn't just about the money. It was about tapping into what mistakes they made that we can avoid with this particular business. So I think it was very beneficial to MyMama. It's been quite a ride these past now we're close to turning 3 years old. It was quite a ride, and there's so many projects coming up. It was for me personally, it was a really good decision. I didn't overthink it because if I did go down that road, I would probably have realized it was madness. But I guess going on Shark Tank, I just had 2 objectives mainly. So getting the funding, of course, and not making a complete fool of myself. Not because of me, but because also I have to keep in mind my family, my daughters, my teen daughters, who would not have, I always have to keep in mind as well what effects my decisions have on them. And that's a huge responsibility of being a parent. You have to make sure that whatever decisions you make are going to be beneficial for them. They're not going to impact them negatively.
Many things at stake, but I think that can be a very huge driving force. I hear it's very often that when there's a child in a family, there's a newborn, the mindset completely changes for the parents. So And I think that's a very huge driving force, especially for entrepreneurs, I would say, because there are so many uncertainties in the entrepreneurial world that you either have to swim or else you will drown. So
And it's not just about, living more comfortably or whatever. I guess it's about showing your kids that you can take calculated risks, you can change your career completely, you can have the courage to give certain ideas a go. You're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to learn from them, you're allowed to bounce back from certain situations. And I guess that's the only thing that I really hope that I can pass on through this whole experience with entrepreneurship.
You'd be leading by example in that sense. So, but it's very powerful because I think first of all, entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and it shouldn't be for everyone either.
Of course.
So there needs to be a balance. But I think that the thinking process is for everyone, because the thinking process, you have an idea, you try it out. Because if you have an idea and you try it out, it can be a small household project. But if you have an idea and you try it out, it means that you think that you're capable enough and you value yourself enough and you value your ideas enough that you're willing to try them out. So I think that that process is beneficial for everyone. Following through with the route of being your own boss, sort of, and stopping from your full-time job and completely focusing on your business might not be for everyone, because it's a journey that does require other sacrifices. But from a young age, we are taught to do things systematically in an order. Go to school, go
And
to your
safely as well.
Yes. And I think, yes, it's a very good keyword, safely. Sometimes we have to take risks. And taking risks is not calculated risks, as you said.
It is calculated
so
risks, but it's what keeps the excitement in getting out of bed every morning. There's, I have this meeting today, it might go north or south.
Yes.
But it's, it's not completely planned. You don't have it all mapped out. As you said, it's not for everyone. I'm sure that there are characters who would not thrive in this sort of scenario. But in my case,
it affects everyone.
I actively seek out getting out of my comfort zone. And that is where I thrive, in fact, when I'm out of my comfort zone.
For some people, even if let's say you're an employee, and some people get stuck in a rut. They might spend an X amount of years in the same employment. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's loyalty, there's retention, there's engagement. And personally, at the place I work on in full time, we have a lot of people who've been with the company for many, many, many years, and that's beneficial for both sides, because it gives a sense of security and engagement, retention, and so on and so forth. However, if you find yourself that you're not liking the job and you're just there because it's safe, that is not a healthy way of thinking, I would say.
And it's not just liking the job. You might love your job, but you're not growing.
You're not feeling fulfilled.
You're not growing. There's no room for growth.
And you have to accept
just because of the nature of the job.
Yes, there might not be nothing wrong with you or with the job. It's just how things end up. You might not, but you have to accept that, and you have to accept that. Okay, say, listen, this is where I'm at the moment. I would like to go further, and the only thing that is stopping me is changing employment. That might be the leap of faith that you need to do at that point in time. It's not necessarily starting your own business, but that might be enough to challenge your status quo, sort of, and to think outside the box. Sometimes changing your environment, it can hold many benefits, more than one may think. So it doesn't, no need to necessarily be an entrepreneur to take risks. Changing jobs is also a risk to some extent. Obviously, the risks are lower than starting your own business and venturing on your own.
But still a big change.
It's still a big change. And I think the key here is to be okay with change and be fine with, again, challenging the status quo and to try different things as well.
And you trust yourself as well. You trust yourself that if things don't go according to plan, then you can pick yourself up and adapt.
Mm-hmm. You have a lot of things going on. How do you support yourself?
Good question. I usually I have an issue with tending to forget about my own health and
I got that feeling, so that's
you
why.
You did? Because there's only so many hours in the day, and some, like the way I reason, even your instinct as a parent, it tells you, make sure that your family is taken care of first, and then tend to your own needs. Unfortunately, I tend to do that. I tend to forget about my needs, but I'm trying to get better at it. I'm trying to, if I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, overstimulated, and I need a short, quiet break, I make sure that I explain to my kids, listen, I need 5 minutes in peace and quiet in my room, please. Like, I need them. There was a period where I was coping, I guess, with the initial stages of setting up the company. I was coping through running and through exercise, and that I found really, really helped me. So definitely it's something that I need to get back to, in fact. But other than that, it's I really appreciate the very few moments of alone time that I get, just because for the rest of the day I am needed or required by a person or a situation. So it feels like you really need to clone yourself to be able to manage everyone's demands very often. And it gets quite overwhelming.
I can imagine.
So I really appreciate my alone time.
Yes.
Or, for example, if I have a trip abroad, those moments at the airport, those moments on the plane alone, I'm in heaven, because they're so rare, those moments, that I don't hear Ma for 1,000 times a day. You feel like you have your space to think calmly and to focus as well. Which is why a lot of my very intense thinking or intense work is still done at night when everyone is sleeping, where I can think, where I don't know that in an hour I have to pick up someone from school. So that gives me the space to really, really focus.
But it's very important, because to me you seem a person who is very composed, regulates your emotions. No one is perfect, but in most cases you seem to regulate your emotions, and you seem quite composed as well. I'm not sure what's going on internally.
From the outset. No, I do reach points where I am completely overwhelmed, and unfortunately then I let it out in not very healthy ways or outbursts, and then you reach a point where you say, okay, I really need to take care of myself.
But that's the key, is knowing how to suit yourself as well. So you mentioned alone time, which is very beneficial, and setting boundaries. And you seem quite very well aware how to set boundaries as well, as even with your children. Sometimes I think that for a parent it's difficult to set the boundaries to your own kids and say, listen, I need some space. In a way, you're not allowed to call me for these couple of minutes.
For those few minutes, exactly.
It's very difficult for a parent to do, I think. So the fact that you're managing...
Yes, of course, because, they make you feel like you're a bad parent for taking 5 minutes of your day.
But that's very healthy as well, because you need to show kids that, listen, I'm a person as well with feelings, thoughts and emotions, so I need my time as well.
And you're giving them the permission to do that in the future when they do feel overwhelmed themselves, to take some time away from what's triggering them, for example.
Yes. One thing that I've recently learned is that unless the person is ready to talk, for example, it's useless to chase the person. It's useless to try to talk to them. And I am finding myself asking permission. Say, listen, can I ask you a question? Or listen, can I give my suggestion based on what you're telling me? And giving the people the space and time to think and reflect and to come up with their own or solution or need for the question or need for a solution. Because some people might retreat. Even if you have the answer for them at that point in time, they might not be ready to accept that. And so yes, I agree 100% that in the future it's something that they might need to use even with you as well. Listen, Mom, I need some time to think about this, and we'll speak afterwards, for example, especially in their teenage years now. So
Yes.
so that makes it this makes parenting even harder because they have to address different needs according to your children because of the different
Yes,
ages.
of course. There's 8 years between the eldest two and the middle child, as such. So it is challenging every day. Having to use one approach with the youngest two, and then in the same sentence, I have to change my approach completely with the teens, with my teens.
Do you find that having a support system is beneficial to you? Because from what you explained is that you tend to retreat and to solve things on your own.
I do. I tend
All
to
right.
do that, yes. But I've, especially with my teens now, it's a completely different way of parenting. They need me in a different way than they needed me when they were little.
Yes.
So I'm having to relearn what approach to use that is beneficial to them, that supports their growth, supports them through this period, through their teenage years, rather than them blocking me out because I'm completely not getting it. Hopefully, I'm trying to learn through getting support how to give them their space as well.
And again, giving them time to think as well. Sometimes you might now start developing a friendship kind of relationship rather than a mother and a daughter, sort of.
You still have to keep in
The
mind
boundary
that
and the
you are
authoritative
parent.
figure, yes,
Exactly.
than the parent.
But unlike what it was when they were little, you can't take decisions for them. You have to give them room to make mistakes, but tell them, listen, I'm here if you need my support. I've been through this. I've messed up like this.
Yes.
I did worse than that. But if you want to talk about it, this is what helped me.
Yes. In summary, what would be the greatest lesson that you've learned as a parent?
I think that there is no right or wrong way to do parenting. Even the twins are so completely different from each other. My youngest two are two completely different characters from their other siblings. And that's I guess the beauty of it. It's not easy because it would be great if you had a handbook and listen, these are the rules, just follow them.
Yeah.
So and you'll be successful. I guess what works with one child, what is beneficial to one child, might completely not be for another child, and you have to give yourself that grace that you are learning as well as you go along. We talk about positive parenting, we talk about different approaches when it comes to parenting, but it's all general guidelines, because then when it comes to applying them to that particular child, not just to your family, to that particular child, you have to figure out how to balance it all with the nature of the child and how to let that nature shine through.
Yes.
because shutting off what nature is telling you, what the child tends to be like. It's going against the principle of parenting, that is, letting and guiding your child to grow into whatever they were meant to be.
And that's the beauty of having a large family as well, having different characters, and perhaps some fights and some teasing.
Makes it complicated.
It makes
yes.
it complicated, yes.
But
That's the fun part, I guess. It's because it's diverse and that you can develop a different kind of relationship with each child as well.
exactly.
No, it's been a pleasure having you on board. I think we had a good discussion. Hopefully it was a positive experience as your
I
first
really
podcast.
enjoyed it. Yes, thank you. It
Very
was
well.
very easy to talk to you, so
I appreciate that.
well done for making me feel at ease.
Thank you. That's a very nice compliment. So thank you for being here, Donna. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to having more conversations with you in the future as well.
Same here. Thank you, Daniel.